Look who we got here!
Hotep, and welcome once again to another edition of Community Cop, where truth and real talk occurs. My name is Noel Leader, one of the co-founder members of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. I'm here today with two co-hosts. First of all, Michael Grays.
Namaste.
Second of all, Father Lucas.
Hotep.
And unfortunately, Julian Harper won't be with us today. Julian, our prayers go to you and your family. His father's a little under, and we will continue to keep him up in prayer. And hopefully, Julian will be back with us next Tuesday. But Julian, your presence is definitely missed, and our heartfelt, prayers and love go to you, your father, and the Harper family.
That's right.
But today we'd like to welcome you, our viewing audience, after being mindful of that said note, to welcome you to the program. You could tell friends, family members that they can watch the program also over the internet. If you want to call them up real quick, tell them to tune in over ManhattanNeighborhoodNetwork.org, MNN.org. Just hit the live feed for Community Cop, and they can watch the program. But as is customary, we like to deflect, as our in-house historian Michael Grays reminded us today of two tragic, very tragic incidents that occurred in our community. First of all, the murder of Emmit Till, which occurred on 8/27/1965. He was a 14-year-old man that was murdered by a white racist after being accused of winking or whistling at a white female. Before we talk about our second issue and go to a quick film, Michael, your thoughts on Emmit Till?
Well, certainly some would say that this is the spark of the modern day civil rights movement. You take your choice between that and Rosa Parks, but some would definitely lean towards Emmit Till, and certainly the courage of Mamie Till Mobley to have an open casket for them to see.
And that was his mother. That was his mother.
Right, his mother, to show what had actually happened to her son, even though it was a lot of suggestions that she not do that. She put it on display before thousands to show what they actually did, and certainly, as Noel pointed out, supposedly there was a remark or whistle, what have you, to a white woman in a little candy store. Him and his cousin was buying candy while his uncle was out there in the vehicle. So actually, his uncle never knew what had happened inside the store. They went home, and several nights later, two white men with guns came to the house of his uncle and grandfather, and they beat him, as the picture demonstrates, grotesquely. He was taken out of the house. His father pleaded, his uncle, pardon me, pleaded that whatever the boy did he would beat him right there on the spot in front of them to correct whatever the problem was. But they said no. They asked him. They asked the grandfather, who pleaded also, how old was he? And when he gave a number, he said, "If you want to live another year, shut the what up." And they took Emmit Till out of the house. They went from room to room, actually, and when they got to the third room, found him, snatched him out of a bed he was sleeping, and took them away with them in their pickup truck. And he was never to be seen again. He was found in the Tallahatchie River with a fan that was connected, a factory fan connected to his neck, and as we know, that's what happened, and certainly we will never forget this just a tragic death that had occurred that night, and obviously all the movements that happened behind that and the courage of Mamie Till Mobley.
And Father Lucas, Emmett Till, although it was one of the most grotesque examples of white supremacy and white murder against members of the black community, it only represent one of possibly tens of thousands of African Americans who during that period was literally just murdered, outright murdered by white Americans in this country, a part of history that is, not spoken of too often in the public schools and the private schools in America.
And not just murdered, the fact that they're barbarians. They're brutalized, many of them. Many of them, they strangle, cut off the penis and put it in their mouth and stuff like that. I mean, I feel sorry for the family of Jim Fowler, but to hear how, white folks talk about the chopping off of his head, and there's some question about that anyway, that he was dead before. Well, in either case, and yet still, when you look at what they did to Emmett Till and what they've done to thousands and thousands of black men, it's all right.
Right.
But it's a tragedy if it's particularly somebody white.
Yeah. And Michael, Father brings up an excellent point. When we look at some of the grotesque activities that are taking place in the Middle East, of course, we don't condone some of the butchery that's happening to some of the civilians and some of the women that's going over there. That is nothing compared to American history. There's a book that I encourage some of you to view. If you don't want to purchase, you probably can go to some of the black libraries. 100 years, Without Sanctuary. It has pictures of some of the grotesque lynchings where whites, because in every community has a criminal aspect, or people that have a criminal mind, but a lot of these lynchings, a lot of these tortures, and they just weren't lynchings, as Father said, they was tortures. A lot of times they just didn't lynch the person, they tortured them for hours just to get the full benefit out of observing this. Right. And they used to bring their kids, they used to bring their wives, and these are so-called normal individuals. The preachers used to come, the congregation used to come, the so-called well-adjusted individuals in the white community used to bring their little children, they used to write postcards and celebrate these lynchings. And so when today we talk about what's going on in the Middle East, but yet we deny the fact, when I hear a lot of people saying the good old days in America, we're moving away from God, let's go back. When was this country ever for God? But, as Father mentioned, what's going on in the Middle East, this went on for hundreds, this went on for centuries right here in the United States of America.
Well, certainly, as you point out, what's perceived today as a level of brutality when somebody gets beheaded, and what Father Lucas said is actually true, because it was okay. This so-called golden age that they had when God was lifted up in America and there was prayers in the school, they had no problem in killing blacks ad nauseum. Certainly, things like so-called picnics had occurred where right after church, the whole crowd, the whole town would gather with the congregation, and they would go out, and not only would they hang a black man, but they would all fight for pieces, toes, penises, ears, and all that, and they would save it in their old pickle jars and what have you. And if you think that was just some rogue acts, it was too many people, they afford to be rogue. And then when you consider the fact that with Emmett Till, they had collections when they charged those two men who did it, when Mose Wright and the other family members identified the two participants, they had people from all over Money, Mississippi, all over, contributing in 5 and 10 cent stores, in convenience stores, and cleaners and what have you. They collected thousands of dollars. Lawyers all over that area said they would pro bono help the defense of those two men who they knew had killed Emmett Till. So just remember that when we think of today's murders, whether it was Eric Garner or Michael Brown, that lawyers for free would defend white supremacy and those whose hands were dripping in blood in the killing of Emmett Till.
I thought it was rather interesting too. when you go back and see the stuff that Mike just described, he said they lifted up in prayer. And that was a complete insult to God to call it. The KKK begins their meetings with a quote prayer. It brings back what Elijah Muhammad said, that white folks are devils. They didn't even know that they were talking to the devil. Well, they couldn't have been talking to God. They had to have been talking to the devil.
All right. In protection of the horrific acts and some of what you see, and as you see, look at the crowd, women, men, children.
Yeah.
These aren't criminals in the terms of individuals that are broken out of jail.
Fine, outstanding citizens.
These are people who would consider themselves fine, outstanding citizens, mothers, grandmothers, wives, school teachers, doctors, nurses. You know, so the depravity extended throughout the white community. It wasn't only in the pockets, so it's always amusing for me to hear people make commentaries about those, whether they're in the Middle East or in the African American community. But in defense of our community, an organization called the Black Panther Party was resurrected, and one individual in particular we like to acknowledge today, Fred Hampton, who was one of the youngest leaders of the movement. He was murdered by Chicago police, and we just want to look at a small clip, a minute and a half, a clip of our hero and our comrade, Brother Fred Hampton.
Fred Hampton. I have the pleasure now to introduce who I believe is one of the baddest motherfuckers in the world. A man that did something that a lot of us ought to be very glad that he did. He was a part of making the only party which exists in the United States today that represents the people. As a matter of fact, he was one half. Him and Huey P. Newton started out in 1966. Sometimes I think where some of us were in 1966. I think what we would have said if we were on the street talking about cans of guns, fighting all them policemen because we didn't know they were pigs out there in the street. And I think I'm speaking for the whole party of the state of Illinois. I know I am. When I say that we love Huey P. Newton, we love Elridge Cleaver, we love Bobby Hutton, we love the Black Panther Party, and we love Chairman Bobby Seale. We love them because they were the first ones that took a stand against capitalism and racism and said that we'll fight it till the end. We said we join the line somewhere, motherfucker. If you try to pass us, we'll blow your brains out. They were the first ones that came through with the program that was initiated for the benefit of the people. All those things that I named, the reasons why we love them are reasons that make it beneficial to us. But let me simply say when I'm introducing Brother Bobby that we love him because it's lovely to love. Chairman Bobby Seale.
All right, that was Brother Fred Hampton. and Michael, why don't you pick it up from there? It is very strong. And as he stated, they were combating against the oppression of our community. It's not as if they were just angry without justification. But he was definitely a field soldier. Why don't you remind our audience a little bit about this courageous and strong brother?
Well, certainly the language was apropos, given his righteous indignation. And certainly so what people might call range and angry and all that, it was righteous indignation. And I'm sure if Fred Hampton was with us today, he could well rationalize and justify every single word that was used and why. And we want to remember that, brother, because not only did the Chicago Police Department assassinate him, but it was also under the instructions of the Federal Bureau of Investigation that this was done. They used an FBI asset who infiltrated that organization, and certainly, unfortunately, he was drugged, as you know. One retraces how it happened. He was drugged, and the members of the Black Panther Party was drugged who was in the apartment that night. And when they were moved on by Chicago Police Department, they could not react. And his wife said that she never saw a situation where Fred Hampton could not respond. She pushed him, shoved him, and did everything, you know, because she trained all of them how to roll out of the bed behind the sandbags and, you know, and to pick up your arms. But he couldn't react because they had drugged the Kool-Aid, and unfortunately, all of the shots, thousands of rounds, were shot one way, all inside the apartment. And those few who survived that vicious assault were lucky. And if that's not constitutionally incorrect the way they did that, then I don't know what is, because that was an outright assassination.
Well, they were referred to as the brave cops. You know, it's like a bullfight. You drug the bull doesn't know which end is up. And then you say it's a brave bullfighter. Well, that was the same thing with Fred Hampton, the cowardly SOBs, you know. And some folks may get upset about the language. I found no problem with the language. I mean, New York City police, even though they not only disrespect black men, old men or whatever, they can't say shut up without shut the F up. So apparently it's all right for these for these people to use that word, but you know, complain.
And one thing that, before we move on, one thing that I've always acknowledged is that, as Michael stated earlier, the police departments across the country, the federal government, CIA, the FBI, all conspired to outright murder these brothers and sisters.
Tell them the name of the program.
To Counterintelligence, or COINTELPRO, under J. Edgar Hoover. And it's the history speaks for itself. It's not even debatable. Outright murder of these brothers and sisters, and they were able to eradicate the Black Panther Party for the most part. But when you look at the dysfunctional, disruptive organizations such as today's Bloods and Crips, or today's gangs, I don't even want to name it, there's so many of them, who push narcotics, homicides, for the most part, the overwhelming majority of them, yet the police department allowed them to exist in our community for generations.
Well, they're fighting and killing each other.
Exactly,
so
but I'm saying you see the concerted effort of white law enforcement organizations to eradicate a progressive, positive political organization which has sophistication, discipline, intelligence, and were pro-black in terms of elevation. They were eradicated. It was priority number one of this nation to eradicate. They said they weren't allowed to exist. But you look at the organizations that are engaged in criminal activity in our community, and you wonder why they are allowed to exist. How come the same? And now we're not calling for COINTELPRO to assassinate individuals, but you see the concerted effort. You see no concerted effort to eradicate, as you stated, Father, because they're so disruptive in our community.
And
any closing
remember
comments?
when Hoover referred to the Black Panther Party as the most disruptive, as the most serious threat to the security of this country?
Right.
And we won't say anything about Hoover's private.
All right. But back then, the problem was abuse of law enforcement organizations. And Michael, we still have the problem today. Over the weekend, there was a march in Staten Island. Reverend Sharpton led a march across the Staten Island Bridge. A caravan, I'm sorry. Initially, it was supposed to be a march. It was a caravan in response to the Eric Garner police killing. Michael, why don't you pick up from what you thought about the march and the speakers and all the, same old politicians there talking about justice and...
Well, I thought it was a case truly of diminishing returns. I thought that there was an opportunity to take the bridge, to truly take the bridge, to march over the Verrazano Bridge the same way our people marched over the Edmund Pettus Bridge, but to go back and not do that, and to ride over there and just to do what has been done already several times, to go from the site where he was murdered to the district attorney's office or to the precinct, those sorts of things, that's been done time and time again. And I thought that there was a blown opportunity. I think that the people came out. It was strong, but I think that in essence it was a blown opportunity because that bridge represents white supremacy at its finest, and they could have done something to disrupt things if they had used the regular weekday, Monday through Friday, prime time, that 7 to 9 time period where people are going to Wall Street, Midtown Manhattan, into their places of business. Had they disrupted that, that would have been strong.
Well, I think you're being facetious. They didn't miss an opportunity at all. That was the way the thing was planned. Sharpton's job is to make sure exactly what you said doesn't take place. He doesn't disrupt anything. Hand in hand with the police, they said, hey boy, don't march across the bridge. White folks don't like that. You will disrupt them. Yassa boss, we'll take a bus. So a lot of folks get fooled following the leadership of Sharpton. And you wonder when are they going to wake up to what Sharpton is really about. I remember in the days, still today, when we used to talk about lawyers chasing ambulances. Well, Sharpton chases tragedies, and usually for his financial benefit and to keep things cool, and gets paid for it.
Well, it's one thing to see so-called law and order. It's one thing to be nonviolent and peaceful. It's a whole nother thing when a march in remembrance of a man who was killed by 8 cops, not 1 cop, a man that was killed by 8 cops, and it becomes a festive event. When all you're doing is singing and chanting and carrying signs, you're told when to come, when to go. All the speeches that day were modified and given the smell test and was approved to say, and everybody else was told how to comport themselves. It becomes just a little bit too festive, and you forget that a man was taken away from his family, and that's the tragedy of it all, that it's beginning to get just a bit too festive.
And when you talk about, we've seen this before, also we've seen in the Amadou Diallo, I remember when it was a march in Manhattan, 5th Avenue, for Sean Bell, and, you know, and also Trayvon Martin in California. There was rallies, no justice. You know, no one's convicted, no one going to jail, but everything's quiet after, you know, a year after, 2 years after, we get no justice, everything's quiet. My primary problem with a lot of these activities is there's a demand for justice, but there's no threat. If we don't get justice, what?
Well, see, and I'm going to get ahead of myself because I know we're going to talk about Michael Brown, but you forced me to get ahead of ourselves because the thing is, be careful what you wish for. You might get it. To continue to keep emphasizing to be peaceful, to stop these demonstrations, stop the protesting, let us bury our son, stop protesting. You keep on doing that, and guess what's going to happen? You're going to give the feds an exit strategy because McCullough does not want to prosecute this case. At least he has no intentions of putting that police officer in jail. I think we all know that. And if you take away the protests, then you wouldn't have gotten the AG there. You wouldn't have gotten the president's attention at all had there not been protests. You keep on saying no protest. Stop protesting.
You talk about the rebellion.
You keep on saying that it's a rebellion, but they're acting as if these protesters are truly rioters. And this is the language they're using, constantly talking about that these are freedom fighters, young freedom fighters that they've always complained that are absent from the movement. You have young people. Yesterday, colleges all over, not only historically black colleges, white colleges, had blacks on their campuses all demonstrating, young people all over, and then people not so young that could care less about the movement. They reached to a zenith when they saw that man lay there for more than 4 hours. Killed at 12:07, didn't get to the medical examiner's office at 4:37, well over 4 hours, laying in the street like a common, they don't even treat dogs like that. It took them time before they even covered the body. They have no respect for the black community, and this was on display there. And for now to tell everybody that you're disrespecting the family if you're protesting, be careful what you wish for. And I say that to the family respectfully. Be careful what you wish for because those people might go home. And if they go home, your case goes home.
Father, am I right in my analysis? And I don't want you to forget your point. I hear all these people calling for justice, and they should. I hear all these people demanding for justice. And I'm talking about these so-called leaders. But there's no, if we don't get it, this is what we're going to do.
No demand.
No demand.
No demands. And no, this is what we're going to do. we keep emphasizing nonviolent protests. Well, that's fine, but you could have a nonviolent disruption of the entire downtown or any place you want. And usually, when the violence comes, it comes from the police. I remember when we took over the Brooklyn Bridge and closed down the subways. We were very nonviolent until the police began to get violent. The make coffins that we had for Huey Newton, and I forget the young man who was killed out in Queens, the police came up with their billy clubs and started to knock things down and pushing. Well, then, that's when we had to fight back. And I could still see Mayor Crotch coming into the Beekman Downtown Hospital, where you had all kind of police, including white shirts, laid out on the table. And he said, "This one's will be a war." And yeah, I guess that's what they wanted. And then you talk about the presence of the AG, the Attorney General. Well, to me, that's really politics. That means nothing. The Attorney General, right then and there, if he wanted to show that he was concerned, he could have removed McCullough from the case.
Right.
Why didn't he do it?
And that's an very interesting point, because in both cases, especially in New York, no pressure is being put on the governor to appoint a special prosecutor, because he can do it. So, I mean, some people want a federal prosecution, which some suggest is a little more difficult because you have to prove, civil rights violations. But if the federal government doesn't do it, which they always say they're looking into it, even with Romali Graham, over a year ago, the federal government said that the Department of Justice said they were looking into it, but they haven't contacted the family. But there's no pressure put on the governor, or that we have a New York State Attorney General who's the highest prosecutor in the state. All these politicians, including Sharpton, go to the feds. I don't care. That's fine. If they intervene, fine. But you need more than one option. If they don't, that case has to be taken out of Staten Island. We have a governor who's a Democrat who was elected by most of you guys, and who knows Sharpton very well. But there's no pressure put on the governor. It's like these cats, it's like these politicians, all of them Democrats who talk of calling for justice, give the governor and the New York State Attorney General a pass.
Well, you basically, most people do not fight their boss. And Andrew Cuomo is Reverend Sharpton's boss. It was Andrew Cuomo who told Sharpton, "You're not going to take that bridge." It was Andrew Cuomo who stepped in, because a white supremacist identifies with an edifice of white supremacy, and that Verrazano Bridge represents white flight from Brooklyn, Canarsie, in Canarsie, Bay Ridge, Sheepshead Bay, and all that stuff, to a white place all their own, where they are definitely in charge. And this is why you have police brass, law enforcement, and judges and the like, and all that, all over there. And they will not allow anybody to take that bridge. It's never been done, and it never will be done by a black person. And this is why he got checked right away by the governor. And as you said, whether it was Sean Bell and all these other cases, there had been no demands on Andrew Cuomo, and that's strangely irregular that you would talk about the feds and all that stuff, but the person right here who you helped to get elected, who comes to the National Action Network, you put no demands on him.
If you try to take that bridge, you won't get the check. Never mind.
But I think one of the reasons why they don't press the governor, because he can care less about this case. He's just like, don't even put this on my doorstep. But all these so-called Democratic selected officials, none of them are putting pressure on the governor. And like I said, federal prosecution, no problem. But if they don't, the governor can appoint a special prosecutor. The New York State Attorney General can intervene. He's the highest prosecutor in the state of New York and take this case. No one's putting any pressure on them because, as you stated, they have relationships that they put above justice for our community.
Well, the black community don't fight. I mean, black elected officials, they don't fight white elected officials, especially governors, attorney generals, and the like. They have no history of doing that.
And before we talk about Missouri, there was a press conference for Romali Graham, and once again, I heard all these politicians, including New York City Council, the Speaker of the City Council, make some good remarks, demanding justice, but there's never any threat. If we don't get justice, and I say put a timetable on it. If we don't get justice, this is what we're going to do. No call for economic boycott, no sanctions, no attack of certain individuals who might be quiet, and not chiming in or putting pressure on the police commissioner, the police, the mayor, etc., to do right by our community. There's just words. There's just words of demand with no follow-up, no threat. And that's why they don't take us serious.
Well, Fred Douglass said it over 150 years ago, Noah. He said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will.
And Father, yesterday was the funeral for our brother in Missouri, Michael Brown. There was once again, it was a packed church, as it well should have been. A lot of people showing the sympathy to the family and the anger as it relates to the killing of this brother. Did you hear any of the speeches or any commentaries of the funeral, or what do you think took place? Because some of this you don't even have to be there to know what was said and what was taking place.
Well, when I heard it was going to give the eulogy, we decided to set up a prayer in our church.
Right.
Because when these families are going to wake up. I mean, this takes place in Ferguson, Missouri.
Right.
And with all of the preachers, their pastor and so forth, they have to bring in this charlatan to give the eulogy for the brother. And didn't know him from a hole in the wall, couldn't care less except to promote Sharpton, make him more able to collect more money from big shots in order to keep the folks.
Well, he was the first one, actually, Father Lucas, to tell the family he would pay for the funeral. Other groups came on later, Alpha Phi Alpha, fraternity, and some other ones came on later, but he volunteered early on to pay for the funeral, and certainly that family was destitute and was not prepared for the expenses and the tragedy
I give kudos
of
for
a
that,
son.
but at the same time, he probably made a lot more money than
He's going to make up. Please, that's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, for the funeral. So, I mean, again, it's all for Sharpton.
No, it's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. But I'm just saying, this is how, when you're crafty, how you can get in with the family.
Sure.
Now, the fact is, the same way he used the family of Trayvon Martin, took them all over the country so he can get to shine by having them there. He's done that. He got as much mileage as he can get out of the Ramarley Graham situation. He's utilized Trayvon Martin, which was a national event, actually, went international.
The Sean Bell case.
The Sean Bell case brought people back to the National Action Network when nobody was even up there. Sean Bell paid big dividends for him, especially in the city.
But wait a minute, Mike. Don't lose your point. But there was justice. The officers were convicted and sentenced in those cases.
No, they weren't.
Wait a minute. George Zimmerman didn't get. There was a big movement down for the hold up, brother. They were demanding justice in Florida for Trayvon
They demanded
Martin.
justice, or they used that line, no justice, no peace.
Yes, they said no justice. That means if there's no justice, there's going to be no peace.
But there was peace without justice.
Oh, really? So Zimmerman didn't get convicted?
Zimmerman has been driving all over the country. Zimmerman got arrested in Ferguson.
So Sharpton must have forgot about the Trayvon Martin case. He must have forgot about the Sean Bell case because there was no conviction of the officers.
And to rub salt in the wound, Zimmerman still has his gun.
Right. But my point is, and brother, please, I hope I didn't interrupt when you lost your point. The point is that this demand for justice is political theater.
Yeah.
There is no real demand. We see case after case. The brother Amadou Diallo, no officer was convicted, no one went to jail, and months afterwards, on to the next one.
They are not supposed to be speaking, and I say this respectfully to the family. The family should not be speaking. The actual eyewitnesses in this case should not be speaking. You are helping the defense cater their remarks. There was no incident report on the Michael Brown shooting other than date, time, and the place of the occurrence. If you look at both police departments, Ferguson's police department as well as the St. Louis County's police department, they have identical incident reports. The names of the cop, the name of the cop, the name of the individual that was shot, the time and place of occurrence. There's no information there. They are waiting to create the best scenario based on the information. We don't know anything about trajectory right now. We don't even know how many times he depressed the trigger on that gun. So 6 shots went into the body. You don't know how many times he shot. They are going to concoct the story about in the vehicle, which is a protective zone for a police officer. they're going to use that to say that there was an attempt by Michael Brown to take the weapon, even though eyewitnesses say otherwise. But you know, in 400 years of American history, that the testimony of a white man, now I'm not even saying a white cop, just a white man will dispense the testimony of 5 or 10 eyewitnesses. It doesn't matter.
And don't forget, this officer as well is claiming that he was assaulted by the brother. Just as George
Yes.
Zimmerman. George Zimmerman said the
Of
same
course.
thing, and that was used to justify. Father Lucas, real quick, and Senator McCain, real quick, we want to talk about what's going on internationally. Is calling for the United States to send troops into Syria, as that whole region, which I've said so many times, the chaos that's going on there is by design. The Europeans have murdered and assassinated heads of state that maintained some stability in that region by assassinating them, by removing them for government. That whole region is in chaos, and the United States and Europe act like they surprised. That was the intended goal. What do you think about the United States putting troops into Syria, as your good friend John McCain is calling for?
They're not surprised. The United States and the European created the stuff that's going on there.
Right.
And when you have, well, I really excuse John McCain. I think he's been brain dead for a long time. But he's talking about nothing is going to solve this without putting boots on the ground. Well, he's forgetting that when they had boots on the ground, they got their butts kicked. Secondly, he made a very interesting and stupid, well, put boots on. I'm not saying they have to be combat soldiers. Well, what the hell they're going to go in there with slingshots, bubble gum, candy to give out? It's absolutely insane. But these folks who want to keep perpetual wars for the benefit of the military-industrial complex, they couldn't care less, because McCain is not going back. His kids are not in there. So what they simply want to do is keep the money flowing.
That's right. And you mentioned the military-industrial complex is a multi-trillion-dollar industry to keep these wars afoot. There's a couple of films I'm asking you all to watch. If you want to know what's going on in Israel as it relates to the bombastic, the primitive, the murderous treatment of Palestinians, if you want to understand that whole what's going on there's 2 films. One is 5 Broken Cameras, and the other one is Occupation 101. 2 excellent films that I've seen. And you think that we're mistreated by police. You ought to see the treatment that the Palestinians in Gaza and throughout the country of Palestine, the treatment that they're receiving at the hands of the Israeli government. It's very, very unbelievable and unfortunate. But this is our time. We have to open up our phone lines. If Julian was here, he'd be giving me the evil eye. First caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? First caller, you're on the air. All right.
We can't hear out here.
We can't hear the callers out here.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Hotel, where you calling from, brother?
It's Brother Leonard from New York.
Okay,
All right.
Hotel. Quick question or comment, brother.
All right, brother. I just want to say this. Now that we got all these young men and women from all over the world watching what's going on in Ferguson, what's been going on with Brown and Garner and everything else, we need to get them together, and we need to show them how to unite, show them how to hold their dollar, and show them how to bring this country down to its financial need, show them how to get back connected to the earth, show them how to grow their own food and to grow their own vegetables so they can start to live, break up all this concrete we got in this jungle and get back to connection to the dirt. We got to show them how to create with their own hands, how to become tailors, how to become seamstress, so that if they want to be fly, make it with your own hands. Don't give this money to these stores and to these other people. This money's not trickling back down to your community.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Hold your dollar. This is the time. Time is now.
Okay,
Peace,
brother. Thank you for your suggestions. Excellent suggestions as well. Hopefully you're putting your ideas to work. Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop.
Assalamu alaikum, Kareem from Harlem.
Hotel, brother.
Yes, sir, brother. Yes, sir. I just want to say, brother, that I want to take my hat off to you, brothers, for doing such a great job. And I also want to take my hat off for the young people and all the people who stood up in Missouri. This is what we got to do. We got to put aside our differences, brother, and realize we have one priority and one enemy, and that enemy is the white man. And the white man has been doing the same thing to us for over 400 years. I want to say that Como is a snake. He ain't said nothing about this killing of Eric Garner and this here in New York City. And Al Sharpton is a sellout. He's going to be dealt with, brother. I just want to say, y'all brothers, have a blessed day and keep the good work up.
Right. Okay, thank you, caller. Peace. And I don't know one selected official that has even requested or demanded that Cuomo speak on to any of this. But next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Hotep, brother. Don't listen to your phone. Talk. Don't listen to your TV. Talk to the phone.
Hey, I just want to say real quick, why did Al Sharpton have that so-called parade on Saturday opposed to a Monday when the DA was in office? And also, why weren't those two Germans or that recent Russian on the Brooklyn Bridge shot or killed or really considered terrorists? And your predictions, all three of you, if you will, Noel, Father Lucas, Mr. Michael Graves, will these racist white supremacist cops get away? Hotep, reinstate automatics, and thank you, and I'll listen for your answer.
Okay, Hotep, brother.
Well, it's real easy that the cops are going to get away because they're not even talking about them. They're mentioning one, Pantelio. That's the only one they even mentioning. So the other 7 is not even really on the radar right now. So I don't see a vigorous prosecution of all 8 police officers. So and I think that I agree with you that it was just a festive event that lacked the real substance and seriousness that it should have had.
Father?
I think they're going to get away, at least from the criminal system of injustice. I hope they don't get away from the people.
Right. And Sharpton was asked over the weekend, what is justice? It's on TV. He was one of them TV talk programs. He said justice to him was a fair and impartial investigation and let the facts lead where they may. That's justice. My prediction is officers are going to get off in both cases, in Ferguson as well as Staten Island. They're going to get off, and we're going to hear about this about a year and a half, and all these elected officials will be on to the next case. No demands, no follow-up. All right, but next caller, welcome to Community Cop, and that's unfortunate.
Hello?
Yeah, where you calling from, caller?
Hello?
Yes, listen to your phone, not the TV. Where you calling from?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Okay, no, next caller. Next
Can you
caller.
hear me?
Next caller.
Hello?
Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from, caller? Caller, you're in the air. Where you calling from? All right, we might be having problems with our phone system. Are you there, caller? All right, next caller. Next caller.
Hello?
Yes, where you calling from, caller?
Hello?
Where you calling from, caller? All right, we might be having problems.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Where you calling from, caller?
Calling from West Side.
Okay, quick question.
Hello?
Don't listen to your TV. Listen to the phone.
Can you hear me?
All right, we need to pass on. We just don't want, we just don't want to go back and forth with this. Can you hear me? Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. And we ask all of you, listen to your phone, not your TV. There's a slight delay.
Hello?
Okay, where you calling from, caller?
Hello?
You're on the air,
I'm
caller.
calling from Harlem.
Okay, quick question or comment.
Brothers, good afternoon. Unfortunately, these guys in Ferguson are going to get an outcome that they're not going to be happy with. The scenarios are changing day by day. And I heard an audio where I heard 11 shots, at least 10 or 11 shots being fired at Michael Brown. Hillary Clinton, who supposedly has presidential aspirations, was asked about the situation in Ferguson, and she declined to speak or even answer. And I find that a slap in the face because her and her husband's political career have been piggybacked on the tails of the black community. So I agree with you. I don't. This doesn't look good. And I heard one brother in Ferguson say he don't trust Sharpton, and another brother saying that if they don't get justice, it's going to go down.
Right. All right.
Good evening, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you for your call. And before we go to the next call, I'd like to remind you, when you listen to your phone and you hear me on the phone, even though there's a slight delay, turn down your TV because there's a slight delay. We don't want to go back and forth with hello, hello, hello. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Caller, you're on the air. Where you calling from? All right, give it to that phone caller. Caller, are you there? All right, we might be having some problem. The phone lines are full, but evidently you guys. Where you calling from, caller?
I'm next. Shut up.
All right, next caller. What kind of community cop? Where you calling from? Next caller. Where you calling from? Okay, we must be having.
Hello?
Yes. Where you calling from, caller?
Hello?
Where you calling from?
Hello?
There's something
All right,
wrong.
yeah, we having problems with our phone call.
Everybody,
From
just start
Manhattan.
talking. Don't even say hello. Just start talking.
Are you there, caller? All right, we're just having some problems. So why don't we continue the conversation?
Okay.
Father, you know, a lot of people put criticisms and concentrations on Reverend Sharpton. It's not as if we enjoy being critical of Reverend Sharpton, but he is the point man. He is the individual who has taken the mantle. Why is it that there's never, and I'm not even going to say rarely, there's never any follow-up in any of these cases where our community do not receive any justice? And I can go down the line, the historical cases that he's involved himself into, that he's taken the mantle, that he's been the front man. Why is there never any follow-up?
They're not supposed to be. I firmly believe that if you put your eggs in the criminal justice system for justice, you're wasting time. It's going to come to the point where folks are going to have their own trial and their own justice. And once that starts to happen, then maybe the system will change. And you won't be able to get some clown and pay him off to keep the people quiet.
And Michael, you know, I mean, sometimes, you know, there's a level of frustration that can be pointed towards our community. We filed a complaint with the Department of Justice as it relates to so many of these incidents, and I never forget when they told us in terms of their investigating our complaint, well, if we decide to investigate it, we won't tell you, and if we don't decide to investigate, we won't tell you. You know, can we honestly and seriously put any faith, should our community put any faith in the Department of Justice?
Well, the fact is, no, you should not put your faith in any of them, but you use whatever leverage you have to make them as honest as humanly possible. Now, the federal government is not a panacea relative to these types of cases. If the Bush administration can come in on Rodney King, why didn't Obama administration come in on whether it was Sean Bell or where Eric Holder is from, that area of Queens? Why didn't they come in on the Ramali Graham, which was just fairly obvious? It was an easy one on that. There's been so many that President Obama's administration has ignored, and I think that this is overblown, this so-called relationship that Reverend Sharpton has with Obama. The fact is, he was supporting Hillary Clinton, and President Obama was keenly aware that, as with all these other black elected officials, was all in Hillary's camp, with the exception of a couple of people. Everybody except Perkins and the sister from the Bronx, the city councilwoman Forster, was all from the jump. Those two were with Obama. Everybody else was basically with Hillary Clinton, and Obama knows that full well. So he can pretend that he's got this magical relationship with the president does not exist, because if it had, then he should have gotten justice for Sean Bell and Ramali Graham and so many others. So the feds are not coming in. There's no demands on Cuomo. And speaking of the eulogy, the family did have a preacher, Father Lucas. The cousin of Michael Brown actually did the eulogy yesterday. But this is the first time I heard of there's a family eulogy for all the people in the church, and then there was a national eulogy. I've never heard that ever. A regular eulogy and now a national eulogy. He was assigned to tell Black America to fall back, and which is what he did.
You talk about Sharpton.
Reverend Sharpton's was assignment yesterday by corporate America was to tell black folks to stay at home, don't think about taking over bridges. Don't think about taking any action. In other words, do not think about independent action. This is your leader. You don't have any other leaders. This is the one person you're going to follow. We've mandated, we've anointed him, and that's it. And that's why it was a eulogy and a national eulogy. I've never heard of that in my life.
Well, I think that was fairly clear, but the media totally ignored the family eulogy, and that's why I refer to him giving, because that was the only eulogy that got broadcast.
Right. All right, let's see if any phone calls. We had the phone lines are filled. Let's see if we got it working. The next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Am I on?
Yes, where you calling from, sister? All right, we might be having problems. Where you calling from, sister?
Just go.
Just talk.
Am I on?
Go!
Talk.
Am I on?
All right, we're having a problem with the phones. Michael, let me go to you. When we talk about the Department of Justice, it was announced that the Department of Justice is investigating the blackest law enforcement agency in the city, which is Department of Corrections, because of some complaints.
Hello?
For years, sister, can you hear us?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am, sister.
Listen, good day, sir. I have a question and a quick comment.
Go.
Go ahead, sister.
Where is the police car? This man, the officer was supposed to be so damaged, so beat up, there has to be some sort of forensics around that police car. Has anybody examined this police car? Fingerprints, blood, whatever forensics are there in the police car.
Right. Excellent question, sister. And I imagine when we hear this concocted story that the police department is going to create, that's going to be part of their story, because they're the only one to have access to this vehicle. But when they create their story and we hear their public story, it's going to sound believable because they're in control of all the information.
Sister, I've already looked in the crystal ball, and Noel is correct. That police car is a protected zone where no one is allowed to reach in, and to reach in constitutes a felony when there's contact. There was some contact, but the contact was initiated by the police officer. They're going to say Michael Brown not only struck the police officer, which is a felony, but then he attempted to take the weapon from the police officer, and that's what started this whole thing. Now, even though the eyewitnesses saw something else, that's going to be part of what Noel described as a concocted story.
That's a very interesting tale. In the first place, why was his weapon drawn in the first place? And I don't know. Secondly, if he's sitting down in the car, unless Michael Brown bent over and over and over, how did he get a bullet in the top of his head?
Well, as it relates to the officer using deadly physical force on an unarmed person, I wouldn't be surprised the officer said that he was severely assaulted by this individual and that he was in a semi-conscious state. He was so injured, so distraught, felt as if he almost was going to blank out, felt threatened, observed this individual reach for something. I imagine that's going to be part of the story.
Now, I agree with you, Noel, but the only thing that he's going to have to create some compelling argument on is that you can say you were in self-defense mode when you started shooting your weapon. But how many times can you shoot your weapon and still be in self-defense? Can you hit him once, twice, 3 times, 4 times? Are you still defending yourself at that point? Now, as he starts going down, can you shoot him in the head and that's still part of your defense? When he's going down, a man 6'4", that big, he's already been shot several times. He's now, life is being zapped out of his body. He's falling down. Now you shoot him again. Are you still in defense mode then? Let's see what compelling story they make to create that scenario that he was still defending himself by the 8th, 9th, 10th shot.
And I will suggest that when he complains about this assault and when he complains about the fuzzy physical condition, when he talks about possibly a concussion, as a result of the abuse that he suffered from this individual when they were in physical confrontation, that he didn't recognize or realize he doesn't know how many shots he fired. You know, all he knows is that, et cetera, et cetera. Trust you me, the explanation is going to go along that line. They said he stayed in the hospital that he was hospitalized
Right,
after
but the
this
hospital
incident?
said that his eye socket was not fractured because he tried to say he had a fractured eye socket.
Right. Okay.
By the way, are we all assuming there's going to be an indictment?
Exactly. that's true too.
True.
All right, do we have callers on the line? Can you hear us, caller? Can you hear us? All right. Unfortunately, we even having problems. Hello, caller. All right. Unfortunately, we have a problem with our phone. You can turn us. I don't know where the problem occurs from. So callers, we apologize. We've seen the phone lines been full for the entire program, but we having problem communicating. Hopefully, the problem is resolved next week. Any other comments? Oh, none of us believe there's going to be justice in this case. We've seen this before. Primary because, one of the reasons, of course, because there's no serious demand for justice in this case. There's a call for justice, but there's no serious demand. And unfortunately, the family is serious in their demands. The loved ones and the community residents are serious, but the individuals who have the cameras, who have taken control of this so-called movement, aren't serious. And the people in power understand that. They know there's going to be no repercussions if justice is not served.
I would be happy, really, if the family stopped speaking to the press.
Right. Exactly. But, they have bad legal advisors.
Yeah.
What is your closing thoughts on both of the cases, or either cases?
I would say to on both that I concur with what Father Lucas just said. They should stop speaking. He's going to take them gallivant all over the country, sashay from event to event, get all this light shine on him, and eventually they're going to blow it. But I keep telling everybody to stop the protesting. It's going to backfire on them, and when people stay home, this will be forgotten, and the lawyers will cut a side deal. They'll get paid, and Reverend Sharpton will get his cut, and everybody goes home.
So that doesn't sound like no justice, so no peace. That sounds like no justice, peace.
Be quiet and get that cheese.
Right. All right. Closing comments.
Certainly, our prayers go out to the Harper family, Julian's father in particular, Mr. Harper. We wish a healthy recovery, full speed. Certainly, Sister Karen, stay blessed. And to Herman Ferguson, whatever challenges you might have, certainly we pray that God looks out for you and strengthens your body also. Reinstate automatics.
Prayers for Mr. Harper, of course. You're right. Herman, more prayers. There's a valiant. Well, he's not a young man anymore, but from the time he was a young man, he never lost sight of what the issue was.
All right, Kitty Cat, I love you. Our prayers continue. I'll see you in a little bit. Little Mo, I love you as well. On behalf of Community Cop, we'd like to thank our producers and engineers, Toppin, Nolan, Sierra, Veronica Kitt, Sheila Berry, Nat Woods. They're the ones that keep all of this stuff going. We'd like to thank you, all of our engineers and producers. See you next Tuesday, 5 o'clock. Tell a friend, tell a foe. Reinstate automatics and community. Open up your eyes. Peace.
Soon we'll be without the moon, humming a different tune, and then there may be teardrops to shed.